Elko, historic downtown Elko. Elko was officially founded the last week of December 1868 as the Central Pacific with its Chinese railroad workers, construction guys, and we'll do another story on them later, are building eastward to join with the Union Pacific north of the Great Salt Lake. That happened May 10th, 1869. And this is a picture. It was one of those, I can't remember the name of the machine. It was like one of those Viewmasters that Alfred Hart took pictures. He was the official photographer for the Central Pacific Railroad. And barely in the background, you can see Grindstone to the west here. This picture was taken about where the post office is, or where the old farm supply building was. Behind us, these are the oldest buildings in downtown Elko, here on Commercial Street on this side and Railroad Street on the other side. And it's always been this way with these two one-way streets. So right behind us is, I have to move my visuals here, is the Silver Dollar Bar, which actually started out in 1870 as a bank. And that's why it's called the Silver Dollar. That makes sense. And it's been that way since, about 1934, and been open almost continually since then. And there's some great stories that go on with the Silver Dollar. Then, next to it, the dark brick building was originally, back to 1868, called Reinhardt's. And right up here at the top of the sign, it said, since 1868. The Reinhardt family were Jewish immigrants from Russia that had come west with the gold rush. And then as the Central Pacific is building these communities eastward, these merchants jumped in and opened stores well along the way. And Reinhardt's was one of those classic old stores that sold shoes and yardage. And the picture this side was the men's side, and the Elko Trophy sold the women's and kids' clothes. And it has the rolling ladders to this day inside there. The family lived upstairs for the first few years. It's just got a wonderful legacy to it. Later it was known as the Golden Rule, and then that closed about, maybe 20 years ago. And it's now these two great businesses that are there now. Then next to that, what's now Bodley's Furniture was the W.T. Smith and later the Russell Company building. Stinson Burger had it after that, and then the Bodley family from Winnemucca bought it with Ed and Jeannie Gillens operating it in the late 1970s, I think. I could be a little off on that. And that is actually 3 different buildings. And they sold heavier things. They sold, household goods and those big cast iron stoves and a little bit of everything. It was also the Wells Fargo office at one point, and it's got a ghost in the inside of it too, who makes his way known every January. We'll have another story on that. Then next door to that is the Machi's building, and we've all eaten at Machi's at one time or another. Machi's building dates back to the 1880s, but as Elko was progressing and becoming a commerce center and a financial center, and of course a shopping center for Elko County, we're the 4th largest county in the nation. It also has the distinction here of being Elko's first city hall. And it became Elko City Hall when Elko was incorporated in 1917 as a separate entity governed by its own government instead of from Elko County. Next to that is Ogiedelli, and Ogie has hosted a lot of stores through the years. Before it was Ogie, it was Donuts and More, and we all know how great that one was. There were 2 little wood frame buildings that you can see on the vacant lot next to that. And on the corner was a huge 2-story building built in 1870 by the Alexander family. And it had a bar at one point and a wine building, a wine bar, excuse me. It was pretty fancy. And then it had rooms for lodging that ranching families would rent. They would come to town maybe 3 times a year. Remember, in the early part of the 1900s, people were still traveling by wagon, and then those newfangled automobiles came in. But it would take maybe 3 hours to come from Lamoille to Elko, so it was an excursion to get to Elko, and you needed to probably stay overnight or a day or two. But these buildings have all held a wonderful and varied life through them. This is a fun story that the Salas family had of the Silver Dollar before it became a bar was Safeway. And it's just another fun variety of what Elko had to offer, and Elko still has to offer. We're awfully proud of what we've got, and we continue these heritage and history, and we'll have another story for you next time.